Hi, everyone. This is Spirit Chats with Kat. Just a little background on this podcast. First of all, I am not a professional. I don't claim to be. I'm not a medium of any kind. I wanted to touch base with people like me who have had spiritual experiences that might seem like something that they can't explain, or it could be something that occurred and it doesn't fit with what we were raised to believe. I myself come from a very religious background, so my experiences were, if I tried to talk to people close to me about them, they were turned into something completely different than what they actually are. So, this podcast is just to share my personal experiences with you, not just as a, I guess you could say, layperson, but also as someone who is a nurse so that you can relate to them, if you're experiencing things yourself and make you feel a little bit nervous because they don't make sense in the colloquial sense of the word. Maybe me sharing my experiences with you, things that have happened to me, will help you make sense of yours. And that is basically the purpose of this channel, this podcast. It seems that my family was always very divided on this issue. I have two grandmothers that, while they were Southern Baptist and Protestant, they also really believed in the gifts, I guess you could call it, that they had. One had premonitions. She would have premonitions about things happening to people before they actually occurred. I had another grandmother that had what they called second sight. So it does run in my family. One part of the family dismissed it because it didn't follow their religious beliefs. And it is outside the mainstream as far as today's religious beliefs go. The things that have occurred to me and my beliefs about them. I feel like there are quite a few of us out there that believe like I do, that spirits and God, just because you may see spirits or you may have things happen to you doesn't mean that you're not on the side of God. Those of you that grew up in religious households, you might know what I mean by that. To me, I don't understand why they can't coexist. Why is it, that there is only God, and if you see spirits, there's something wrong with you and you're not doing something right? Or, why is it that I believe in spirits, but I don't believe in God? To me, I don't see any reason why they can't both exist. I personally lean more toward spirits having a hand in my daily life. Not random spirits per se, more like my ancestors, the spirits of my ancestors. And I'll explain more about that in a later podcast. I really do hope that it helps people like me out there who may be feeling confused about it, because we're getting so much information on these things from other places that our interpretation of visits from spirits and things like that can be skewed in a negative light to where it becomes something scary or something bad. And I think that I haven't had scary or bad visits from spirits only because I did not view them as scary or bad. I viewed them as trying to communicate with me, and they just didn't know how to communicate. They weren't used to people being able to communicate with them. So their approach was a bit messy. And, that's how I viewed all the contacts that I've had that I will talk to you about in the course of this podcast. And maybe it will shed some light on things for people. Nothing made sense to me until I started viewing it in this way. Once I began to view the spirits as not something to be afraid of, and to remember that a lot of them at one point in time were flesh and bone walking around on this planet, then everything began to make sense to me. And it was no longer something that made me nervous. Basically, that's my introduction to this channel and to this podcast. Stay tuned for my next podcast, which I will be talking about my own personal death and what occurred after that once I was back here. All right, thank you everyone. Anyone who gave me the time, I really appreciate it. And if you want to hang around for the next podcast, it should be interesting and hopefully helpful. Thank you.